Breaking news, local hospital officials now confirmed to ABC News there is one survivor after a passenger plane crashed near India's Ahmedabad airport with more than 200 people on board. That survivor is currently in the hospital. Video shows the Air India plane hit a hostel for medical students shortly after takeoff. The airline says the flight was heading for London's Gatwick Airport with 242 passengers and crew on board. India's Civil Aviation Ministry says the plane gave a mayday call before the crash. Now a massive effort's underway to comb through the debris. Let's bring in foreign correspondent Maggie Rulli in London, transportation reporter Sam Sweeney in Washington, and ABC News contributor, former Marine Corps fighter pilot Stephen Ganyard. Maggie, incredible when you look at these images to think someone actually survived this crash.
Diane, exactly. I mean, in many ways, this is unbelievable. I don't think anyone was expecting this news, but a local hospital in Ahmedabad has confirmed to ABC News they're currently treating one person who was on board that aircraft. They are a survivor. Right now, though, the condition is unknown. But again, when you look at that video, just the fact that one person right now is being treated in a hospital, there are no words for it. We're getting new details that are coming in from this crash, Diane. We know that according to flight radar, the airplane sent its last distress signal just seconds after takeoff and then crashed moments later. It crashed into that densely packed area of the city just outside the airport. It crashed part of it directly into an area that was part of a medical college, so there were students and their families in this housing. We know that when you look at these images, you can see why eyewitnesses have told local reports that it's shocking, it's horrific. You can see debris and even dead bodies scattered around the area. More and more eyewitnesses are coming forward describing this scene as just chaos of thick smoke in the air, essentially what's a fireball rising into the sky. Because we have to remember, this flight was taking off for London, a 9-hour journey. So it was full of fuel. Now all that fuel was really fueling this fireball on the scene. Rescue workers have been brought in immediately. Local police saying all rescue workers were given to this effort. People going through, racing to the scene. We know heavy machinery has been brought in looking for people potentially trapped in that rubble. Right now, still a fairly active situation, Diane.
Sam, does having a known survivor now change anything for the investigation?
Look, this investigation is going to be wide-ranging. We simply do not know what happened in this. Will that survivor be able to explain something that happened on board? Did he see something go into the engine? Was he looking out the window? All of that is certainly possible. But we also have a lot of video coming in from the takeoff. We see that just from the moment of liftoff, that plane struggles to get into the air and climb higher, just reaching about 625 feet before it crashed. They're going to be looking at the data that was put into the computers. They're going to be looking at the engines. Was this possible fuel contamination? Everything is on the table right now.
And Colonel Gano, what stands out to you when you look at video and some of the images coming out of this crash?
I think, Diana, just how baffling this is. The 787 is an extraordinarily safe airplane. It has all sorts of things on board in the computers that prevent human error. It's a great airplane to fly, extraordinary safety record. And so you look at this, as Sam said, it struggles to get into the air, and it didn't stall, because in its actual stall, the nose comes down and it crashes in more of a vertical. So this just sort of mushed in. They were gliding. They got to about 400 feet above the ground, and they were gliding. Why? For some reason, those engines were not producing the thrust required to put that airplane in the air. Why would that happen? Sam said maybe it could be fuel contamination. But even, Diane, when the airplane is certified, they load it up to its maximum weight, and they shut one engine down, and that airplane can take off at its maximum weight with just one engine. So when a 2-engine aircraft loses the other engine, it's perfectly safe. The airplane is designed to be able to fly on one engine. So why it didn't? It's an absolute mystery. Sometimes when we look at these videos and the extraordinary videos we see, we could say, maybe this happened or maybe that happened. In this case, I don't think we have any idea, which means getting to those black boxes is going to be absolutely critical in this mishap.
And Maggie, this plane crashed into a building, a hostel. In fact, we can see the debris spread over what looks like a really urban area. So what's the latest with injuries on the ground?
This is the other developing part of the story, Dan. You see those images of just buildings that have been destroyed from this crash. We know it crashed almost directly into a housing unit for a local medical hospital. One eyewitness even said her son was home for lunch at that hostel. He had gone, it was just after 1 p.m. local time, and he had to jump out of the second-story window just to save his own life after the crash. You're hearing more and more of these stories as images are pouring in, people going through the rubble, looking for survivors. We are getting updates of potentially dozens of people, according to local media, that have been taken to the hospital, but no hard numbers yet of how many people have been injured. But again, looking at those visuals, you can tell that much of that building has been destroyed. And actually, we've also heard from Air India, their parent company, that said they're going to help rebuild that building, that they're going to invest money to make sure it gets built back up. They're also giving money to anyone whose family lost a family member in this flight. So the companies are trying to step up right now. Again, right now, as both Sam and Steve McGinnis just said, we're waiting for more information on this. And as we wait this information, family members are also desperate for answers. There is a helpline, there's a help center, but again, still so much unknown, Diane.
Sam, any other concerns now about the Boeing 787, given that's what the type of plane this was?
Look, this particular plane has done more than 8,000 flights. There has never been a fatal crash with a Boeing 787. There has never been a crash with a Boeing 787. When you have a design flaw in an airplane, typically we learn about that early on, like we did on the 737 MAX. But this has now flown more than 1 billion passengers. It has been in service for more than a decade with no significant issues. But investigators are still going to be looking at everything. They want to know. Maybe there is something that is fundamentally wrong with the plane, and they have to address it in other aircraft. There's no indication of that right now, but they are certainly going to be looking at that.
All right, Maggie Rulli, Sam Sweeney, Colonel Gagnier, thank you all.